At my friend's birthday party, Henry brought his mistress along. The little girl looked at me with an innocent and lively tone. I heard from Henry that Sister Sophia's American-style coffee is excellent. Could I have the honor of trying it today? Henry tilted his chin at me and ordered, "What are you standing there for? Go make the coffee." I got up and walked out of the banquet hall. And I never went back. My friend's birthday party was held in their own villa. Originally, Henry told me that he would pick me up and go to the party together after he came back from the company in the evening. But in the late afternoon, he called and said that the driver would send me there instead. He didn't explain to me why he suddenly changed the plan, and I didn't ask either. Our relationship had always been like this. He never had to explain his actions to me. But as soon as I entered the banquet hall, I felt the subtle glances cast from all around. Some were curious, some were gossipy, and some were even sympathetic. Soon, I understood the reason. I saw Henry, who was chatting with the host. And there was a beautiful girl affectionately clinging to his arm. A sharp pain shot through my heart and spread all over my body. Only then did I understand why Henry had broken his promise. He didn't pick me up because he wanted to bring someone else. I didn't understand. Since he had chosen to bring his mistress to the party, why did he still ask me to come? Did he really have to humiliate me in public like this? I stood there, frozen in place for a long time. Perhaps feeling my gaze, Henry turned his head. When he saw me, he didn't show any sign of guilt. Instead, he greeted me casually and even nodded at me. "You're here." The host beside him was extremely embarrassed, and the smile on his face looked particularly strained. "Sister-in-law is here. Just take a seat and make yourself at home." The little girl who had been clinging to Henry blinked her eyes and looked at me, as if she understood something. The little girl was really beautiful, young and fresh, and even her tone of voice was innocent and lively. "I heard from Henry that Sister Sophia's American-style coffee is excellent. Could I have the honor of trying it today?" My heart tightened, and my nails unconsciously dug into my palms. Henry had an indifferent expression and turned his head to ask the person beside him, "Do you have a coffee maker at home?" The host's breathing quickened a bit. He secretly glanced at me, then wiped the sweat from his forehead and gritted his teeth. "Yes, it's in the tea room over there." Henry tilted his chin at me and ordered, "What are you standing there for? Go make the coffee." In an instant, the lively banquet hall fell into a deathly silence. Everyone lowered their heads and secretly peeked at me with the corners of their eyes. I suppressed my embarrassment and looked at Henry. Just in time to meet his mocking gaze. I paused for a moment, then turned and walked towards the side of the hall. "Hurry up," Henry added. I didn't say a word, and my steps didn't stop either. I didn't go to the tea room to make coffee. I had been to this friend's house with Henry once before, so I roughly knew the layout of the house. I walked through the tea room, opened the back door, and came to the back garden. After walking along the winding path, I went out through the side gate of the villa's garden. The driver who had sent me here had already left. I ordered a car through a ride-hailing app. After the driver accepted the order, he called me. He said that he had been here before, and this villa area didn't allow external vehicles to enter. He asked if I could wait for him at the main gate. I said I could. This villa area was really huge. After walking for a while, my feet in high heels started to ache. I took off my shoes and carried them in my hand, walking barefoot. The small stones on the ground occasionally poked at the soles of my feet, causing a slight stabbing pain. But I felt my steps were light, and I even started to run as I walked. The scenery around me was receding, just like the past fragments, getting farther and farther away from me. I felt as if the shackles on my body were slowly falling off. I became lighter and lighter. When I reached the main gate, I was barefoot, my hair was messy, and I was in a sorry state. But when I saw the car waiting there, I couldn't help but smile. The direct headlights were very bright and a bit blinding. But they dispelled the dark clouds that had surrounded me for years. In the thick night, I suddenly felt enlightened, and everything seemed to become clear. As soon as I got home, Henry's call came in. "How long are you going to take to make a cup of coffee?" I didn't promise to make coffee for you, I replied inferently. Besides, I'm already home. Henry laughed out of anger. Sophia, have you grown bolder? I was too lazy to say anything more and hung up the phone directly. Back in the bedroom, I started packing my luggage. Henry's villa was very large, with more than a dozen rooms upstairs and downstairs. But the space that belonged to me was only half a bed and one compartment of the wardrobe. Excluding the gorgeous dresses that Henry had prepared for me to attend the banquets, I had very few of my own clothes. It took me over an hour to pack everything into 2 suitcases, one large and one small. That night, Henry didn't come back, and he didn't call again either. The next day was Sunday, and it was also the day when I met Lucas every week. Early in the morning, I went downstairs to the living room and waited. By a little after 9 o'clock, my mother-in-law still hadn't brought Lucas over. I called the old house. The servant stammered. The master came in the morning and said he was taking the young master to the amusement park. I hung up the phone with a bitter smile. Henry was punishing me for not being obedient yesterday. He always knew how to manipulate me. Lucas was the child I gave birth to after a difficult delivery, and he was the person I cared about the most. I only got to see Lucas 1 day a week, and I cherished that time very much. But as long as I made Henry the slightest bit unhappy, he wouldn't let me see Lucas until I yielded and apologized. I took a deep breath, mentally prepared myself, and dialed Henry's number. It only rang twice before the other side hung up. I called again, and he had already turned off his phone. After thinking about it, I dialed Lucas's phone watch on a whim. To my surprise, it actually got through. "Hello, Mom," a childish voice came through. My heart softened, and I asked softly, "Lucas, when will you be back?" "Mom is waiting for you at the old house." "I don't want to go back. I want to ride the carousel," the child refused flatly. I said gently, "But we haven't seen each other for a week. Mom misses you so much." "Don't you miss Mom?" "No," came the immediate reply. "It's okay. Then you can play first and Mom will wait for you." "I'm not going back. Dad said he's going to take me to stay in a tent and watch fireflies tonight." With that, the other side hung up the phone in a hurry. I sighed and carried my suitcase out. Originally, I wanted to see Lucas before leaving. But it seemed that he didn't want to see me at all. After all, the bond between us mother and son was shallow. It seemed that there was nothing and no one in Henry's house that I would miss. Well, it was good that I could leave freely. In the eyes of outsiders, I was Henry's lawfully wedded wife. We had a grand wedding. But only I and Henry's family knew that, strictly speaking, Henry and I were not really husband and wife. Because we hadn't gotten a marriage certificate. Back then, when my grandmother was seriously ill, she was worried about me who hadn't graduated yet. She used the favor that my grandfather once did for the Henry family to force the eldest son of the Henry family to marry me. At that time, Henry's grandfather, concerned about the family's reputation, gritted his teeth and agreed. My grandmother was afraid that they would go back on their word, so as soon as I graduated, she demanded that we get married and hold a wedding immediately. I also told my grandmother that I didn't have to marry the young master of the Henry family, and I could live a good life on my own. But at that time, my grandmother thought that after she passed away, I would be all alone in the world with no family left, and it was really pitiful. She even became obsessed with the idea of me marrying into the Henry family, and no amount of persuasion could change her mind. "Sophia, I won't rest in peace if I don't arrange your future properly," she said firmly. I had no choice. In fact, the Henry family looked down on me. Before the wedding, Henry's mother, my future mother-in-law, came to me and privately made a request. She said that I could only get the marriage certificate after I gave birth to a child. I thought about it and agreed. At that time, I thought that getting married was just to give my grandmother an explanation. It was fine not to get a marriage certificate. "It's better not to tell your grandmother about this. She's seriously ill now and can't stand any stimulation," Henry's mother said in a threatening tone. I originally thought that this was an ordinary marriage in name only. As long as it could satisfy my grandmother, it was worth it. After my grandmother passed away, I could leave freely. But I didn't expect that I would fall in love with Henry. In the first year of our marriage, he was really good to me. I had just graduated and was still looking for a job. Henry arranged for me to work in the general manager's office of the Henry Group. Every morning, he drove me to work with him. After work, he would wait for me to leave together. In front of our colleagues, he would gently hold my hand and leave. The people in the office were all talking about how I must have saved the galaxy in my last life to be able to marry such an excellent and devoted general manager Henry. At that time, Henry took care of all the matters related to my grandmother's hospitalization. Once, my grandmother was in critical condition and was admitted to the ICU. He accompanied me and stayed up all night in the hospital, constantly comforting me. Moreover, Henry himself is an outstanding person in a position of power. Working in the same company, I could see his resoluteness and decisiveness when dealing with official business. Everyone has a psychological tendency to admire the strong. It's hard not to develop feelings when you spend every day with someone who excels in all aspects like him. The moment I found out I was pregnant, I was overjoyed. I immediately told Henry the good news. It was obvious that he was delighted too. However, the next moment, he suggested that I resign from my job and stay at home to focus on the pregnancy. I've always had a gentle personality and am not good at arguing or resisting. Coupled with my admiration for him, I subconsciously agreed. By the way, Henry, when are we going to get the marriage certificate? The baby will need to register for a household registration when it's born, I asked, looking at him. He stared at me for a few seconds with no expression on his face. After a while, he finally said inferently, "Let's talk about it later." Watching his retreating back, a strong sense of unease welled up in my heart. Something seemed wrong, but I couldn't put my finger on it. My intuition was right. Throughout my pregnancy, Henry became increasingly cold towards me. In the later stages of my pregnancy, he often didn't come home at night. I had a difficult labor and endured pain in the hospital all night. At dawn, just before the baby was born, he finally arrived at the hospital. Shortly after I finished my confinement period, my grandmother passed away. I always felt that she had been holding on strongly. Only when she saw that I had given birth to a baby and thought that my future life was stable did she dare to close her eyes in peace. I was heartbroken. What's more, the difficult labor had taken a toll on my body, leaving me extremely weak. Using the excuse that I couldn't take care of the baby, Henry's mother forcefully took the child away. I cried and begged Henry to bring our child back. But he just said inferently that I should take good care of my own body. At that time, my heart was filled with despair, and I also thought about leaving. However, I couldn't bear to part with the child. That was the child I had given birth to with all my efforts. Sundays were the days I looked forward to the most because I could see him. Looking at the baby's tender face and watery eyes, that sense of satisfaction could resist all negative emotions. For the sake of the child, I once again asked Henry to get the marriage certificate. He looked at me with a condescending disdain and sneered, "I thought you had more backbone. Turns out you're just like your grandmother who likes to climb up the social ladder." I clenched my fists and trembled with anger. "What do you mean? I, Henry, have never been someone who can be coerced. When your grandmother forced me to repay the favor with marriage, I secretly swore that one day I would make you regret it." I looked at him desperately. "So, all those things in the past, were they all fake? All those things in the past, your thoughtfulness and care for me, the affectionate looks you gave me, were they all fake?" Henry curled the corners of his mouth and said in a cold tone, "What do you think?" After leaving Henry's house, I didn't know where to go. In this world, I no longer had any other family members. Just as my grandmother had worried, I became all alone. However, it didn't seem to be such a bad thing. I didn't feel lonely or scared. I could live well on my own. Since I couldn't think of where to go, I just didn't think about it. I directly found a hotel to stay in and spent my days watching TV, browsing my phone, eating, and sleeping. I didn't have to get up early to make hand-ground coffee for Henry. I didn't need to be anxious about Henry's mother suddenly calling and berating me for some inexplicable reasons. I didn't have to spend all day studying various parenting knowledge only to find it useless. I could lie in bed all day, with my mind empty and not thinking about anything. One day, out of boredom, I turned on the TV and happened to see a TV drama filmed in Dali. The scenery in it was incredibly beautiful and deeply attracted me. I immediately jumped out of bed and booked a flight ticket to Yunnan for the next morning. While waiting for my flight at the airport, I received a call from the butler of Henry's ancestral house. "Madam, I'll send the young master over later. Please wait at home," he said. Only then did I remember that it was already Sunday. I had actually spent a whole week in the hotel without realizing it. Moreover, it seemed that the ancestral house didn't know that I hadn't been home for a week. When I heard the airport announcement calling my flight number, I hurriedly said, "Don't come. I'm not at home." Then I hung up the phone. As soon as I got on the plane, the phone rang again. As soon as I answered it, Lucas's childish but angry voice came through. "Bad mom. If you don't want to see me, I don't want you either. Dad said you're not allowed to go home." Before I could react, the phone was hung up again. I was stunned for a while before smiling helplessly. Over the past few years, because I couldn't bear to part with Lucas, I forced myself to stay in Henry's house. In order to be able to see the child regularly, I endured humiliation and tried to please Henry. At that time, whenever he frowned, I would be terrified. I was afraid that if he got angry, he would prevent me from seeing Lucas again. Like all mothers who deceive themselves, I wanted to maintain the superficial integrity of the family for the sake of the child. This kind of self-moving was quite ridiculous. Because the child didn't need it. Lucas was raised in the ancestral house, and I only saw him once a week. Even though every time we met, I tried my best to coax and accompany him, I still helplessly found that he was becoming more and more distant from me. Every Sunday's gathering was just a task for him to complete. In the afternoon, he would always clamor to go back. I had to admit that Lucas really didn't seem to need me as a mother. He didn't like me either. So I would do as he wished and stop bothering him in the future. Dolly was even more beautiful than what I had seen on TV. I rented a homestay and went out for walks every day, enjoying the beautiful scenery and delicious food. It was so pleasant. The pure air here really seemed to be able to purify people's hearts. I couldn't help but calm down and start thinking about my own life and future. In the past, I had always been very passive in my life. I passively accepted the death of my parents, passively listened to my grandmother, and passively maintained the marriage for the sake of the child. It seemed that I had never actively done anything for myself. I thought that in the future, I would live for myself. Leaning on the windowsill of the homestay and looking at the clear blue sky outside, I began to think about what I wanted to do. I must have had a dream once. It wasn't some grand goal. I've never been ambitious since I was a child, and I'd never thought about making a lot of money or achieving great success. I just wanted to live my own ordinary life. When I was in college, I once thought that I could open my own bookstore in the future. To provide a place for like-minded friends to relax and gather. It didn't matter if I couldn't make money. Because I don't seem to be short of money now. After my grandmother passed away, she left me a sum of money. According to her request, after her death, I sold the house in her name. Although it wasn't very large in area, a house in Jing City was still worth some money. All that money was deposited in my bank card and hadn't been touched at all. When we got married, the Henry family gave me 10 million yuan as a betrothal gift, plus several sets of jewelry. I didn't. After marriage, Henry gave me 300,000 yuan a month for household expenses, but my monthly expenses never exceeded 20,000 yuan at most. Because whether it was Lucas's life and study or all kinds of household expenses, the butler and servants of the Henry family would prepare everything, and I didn't have to worry about it. I didn't have any place where I needed to spend money at all. The biggest expense usually was buying all kinds of toys and gifts for Lucas. Once, when Henry's cousin learned about the amount of money he gave me each month, she sneered, "So my brother is just using this little money to humiliate you. It seems that he really doesn't like you. No wonder he just gave you 10 million yuan as a betrothal gift to get rid of you." For them, 300,000 yuan a month was a humiliation, and giving a betrothal gift of 10 million yuan was called getting rid of someone. Perhaps, I really wasn't suitable for the world of the rich. The young ladies and wealthy wives in their circle would spend hundreds of thousands of yuan easily when buying a bag or going to a beauty salon. The betrothal gifts and dowries in their circle were often commercial buildings, shops, properties, and shares. In comparison, 10 million yuan really didn't seem like much. My consumption behavior and habits seemed stingy and unrefined in their eyes. However, I didn't care about that. Originally, I stayed there just for the sake of the child, not because I wanted to integrate into their circle. The money in my hand might not mean much to them. But considering my material desires and consumption habits, I might not be able to spend it all in my lifetime. Now, I have the confidence to fulfill my wish and open a bookstore. Before leaving Dolly, I called Henry. The phone rang until the last ring, and he picked up just before it was about to hang up automatically. "Realized your mistake." Before I could speak, he continued on his own. "This time, you've gone too far. As a punishment, you won't be able to see Lucas for 3 months. "Henry," I interrupted him, "we didn't get a marriage certificate when we got married before." He seemed to chuckle, looking in a good mood. "You really want to get the marriage certificate with me? It's not impossible, but it's definitely out of the question recently. You made a mistake, so I won't consider this matter for now. About what happened last time, Isabella is still not happy. If you come back and apologize to her, maybe I'll." I was wondering in my mind, who is Isabella? "Oh, she's the girl who asked me to make coffee for her, Henry's mistress." "Did you hear what I said?" Seeing that I didn't respond, he raised his voice a bit. I said calmly, "Since we don't have a marriage certificate, if we separate, there's no need to go through the divorce procedures either." The voice on the other end suddenly stopped. After a long while, he spoke, his voice filled with anger. "What do you mean? Henry, let's break up. Do you know what you're talking about? Yeah, we don't need to see each other again in the future. I won't return the 10 million yuan your family gave as a betrothal gift before. Consider it as compensation for me giving birth to Lucas." "Fine, very good." He seemed to laugh out of anger. "You'll never see Lucas again in the future." Looking at the phone that had been hung up, I smiled weakly. The child I gave birth to with so much hardship seemed to have become a tool for him to manipulate and threaten me all along. For the sake of the child, I compromised and endured again and again, swallowing my pride. As he wished, the child is not close to me and doesn't like me as a mother at all. This is also the main reason why I can make up my mind to leave resolutely. I returned to a small county town in the south. That's where I lived when I was a child. Before my parents passed away, our family of 3 lived here. My mother grew up in Jing City. Back then, when she wanted to marry far away here, my grandmother initially disagreed. Later, she was touched by my father's character, so my grandmother still handed my mother over to him. My mother said that although she grew up in Jing City, she really didn't like the dry air there. She liked the small southern town, which was warm and humid and made people feel comfortable. I thought I'm indeed my mother's child, having the same feelings as her. Although I went to Jing City later and lived there for many years, I've never been able to adapt. Deep down, what I like is still this small town where I was born. When I wanted to find a place to settle down, the first thought that came to my mind was here. The house I lived in when I was a child had already been sold. I spent a long time choosing and finally picked a house with a yard in the old urban area. There was a room in front of the small yard, which happened to face the street and was used as a storefront before. I turned this room into a bookstore. The several rooms behind the small yard were renovated by me into a place for my own living. There were a living room, a bedroom, a kitchen, a dining room, and a bathroom, all in one. In the yard, I planted all kinds of flowers and plants. The renovated home was as wonderful as I had imagined. On a sunny and pleasant day, I moved into my new home and held a small opening ceremony for the bookstore. The bookstore, as I had expected, didn't have a very good business. Occasionally, some nearby students would come in to read books, and most of the time, there were very few customers. That's okay. It's quieter, and I can sit behind the counter and focus on writing novels. When I was in college, I had a hobby of writing. I could occasionally publish short stories in some magazines. I once wrote an medium-length online novel which received a good response, accumulated some readers, and also earned a considerable amount of manuscript fees. When I was in college, my plan for the future was to work in a magazine or a publishing house after graduation and write novels in my spare time. But as soon as I graduated, at Henry's request, I joined his company. I married him, gave birth to a child, and later abandoned writing. Now, I want to gradually cultivate this hobby again. Doing what I like and living a good life is my plan for my future. One day, I was typing in the store when it suddenly started to rain heavily outside. The raindrops spattered against the window panes. Soon, a large patch of water spread at the door. A tall and upright young man riding a shared bicycle quickly parked the bike at the door of the bookstore, jumped off the bike, and rushed over. He picked up something from the bike basket and held it in his arms. "Boss, can I take shelter from the rain here?" He stood under the eaves, lowered his head, and wiped the thing in his hand, asking me loudly. "It's okay. Come inside," I said with a smile. "No, I'm all wet. I don't want to dirty your floor." He raised his head and wiped the water droplets on his forehead with his sleeve. The moment he saw me, he was stunned. I also saw his face clearly and couldn't help thinking that this guy was quite handsome. He wasn't the kind of fair and handsome, but had a wheat-colored skin, sharp facial lines, thick eyebrows and bright eyes, and a very masculine kind of handsomeness. After a few seconds passed and I sized him up clearly, he came back to his senses. He looked pleasantly surprised and said, "Sophia, when did you come back? Do you know me?" I asked in surprise. I was quite sure that I didn't know this tall and heroic young man in front of me. He grinned, showing his white teeth. "I'm Julian." "Julian?" I frowned and thought for a while, but still had no memory. 17 years ago, there was a fire in the downtown mall. Your father saved me. Later, as he spoke, my memory was suddenly pulled back many years ago. Before I was 10 years old, I had a happy family. My parents loved each other, and they both doted on me. But at the age of 10, all of this vanished like a bubble. My father was a firefighter. When there was a fire in the downtown mall, he went in with his colleagues to rescue people. Fortunately, all the people in the mall were saved that day. However, my father, together with another firefighter uncle, sacrificed their lives in that fire. Not long after my father's funeral was over, my mother, in a trance, was hit by a truck while riding an electric bike and died on the spot. In an instant, I became an orphan without parents. Later, my grandmother came and took me to Jing City to live. Not long after I arrived at my grandmother's house, my grandfather also passed away. I fell into deep self-blame. I was wondering if I was the kind of person in TV dramas who was born unlucky and would bring bad luck to my relatives one by one. First my parents, then my grandfather. Because of self-loathing, I became inferior, timid, and gloomy. Although my grandmother later noticed that something was wrong with me and took me to see a psychologist, my inherent timidity had taken root deeply. Sorry. Julian's words pulled me back from my memories. If it wasn't for saving us, your father wouldn't have. It's okay. That was my father's job responsibility, I said sincerely. Once, I also blamed him in my heart. Why did my father go to save those people? Why did he leave me and my mother behind? My mother had an accident because of excessive grief. Couldn't he cherish his own life for our sake? Later, as I grew up, my thoughts gradually matured, and I let go of it and reconciled with myself. I began to understand my father. His character and sense of responsibility made him go all out in his work every time. This kind of character was also the reason why my mother liked him in the first place. He was just such a person. He was proud of his work and was always full of pride whenever he mentioned it. So, I don't blame him anymore. I should also be proud of his work. Oh, by the way, take a look at this. Do you still have any impression? Julian held up the small ceramic flower pot in his hand. What's this? I took the flower pot in surprise. Is it mine? The familiar flower pot brought back my memories. This was something my father took me to make at a pottery workshop when I was a child. At the bottom of the flower pot, there were the two crooked characters Sophia written by myself. Later, I seem to have taken it home and planted a cactus in it. If I hadn't seen it again, I almost would have forgotten about this small flower pot. Why do you have this? I asked curiously, holding the small flower pot and rubbing it again and again and again. Julian smiled. Actually, I went to your house later, but you had already moved away. In his narration, I learned the whole story. After being rescued by that tall firefighter uncle in the mall, he was still conscious. Although the firefighter uncle was wearing a mask and his face couldn't be seen clearly, he heard someone beside him call his name. After he recovered, he went to the fire brigade with his parents, wanting to give a silk banner to the uncle who saved him. But he learned that the uncle had sacrificed his life, not long after saving him out. His whole family was very sad. Later, he heard that the firefighter's wife also passed away accidentally, and only the 10-year-old daughter was left at home. His parents discussed and decided to adopt that girl. They even decorated the room at home, which was in the pink and light yellow colors that little girls like. He happily thought that he was going to have a little sister. Unfortunately, they were one step too late. They didn't even have the chance to see the girl before she was taken away by her grandmother. At that time he was very disappointed and even went to the door of the firefighter uncle's house and cried. It was also at the door of that house that he saw the small flower pot in the corner, with a tiny cactus inside. At the bottom of the flower pot were the two characters Sophia. Knowing that it was the name of that little sister, he took the flower pot home. I've never grown flowers before. I took great care of that cactus, but it died in less than a week. Julian looked a bit embarrassed when he said this. I couldn't help laughing. Did you water it every day? How did you know? He also smiled. Later I learned that cacti can't be watered every day. Because when I first started growing cacti, I also watered them every day, and I killed quite a few of them. The one you picked up was the one I had kept alive for the longest time. Oh, so how long did you keep it? For a full 51 days, I said proudly. We both laughed. By the way, why did you bring this flower pot out? I asked. He pointed to a corner at the bottom of the flower pot. See this? It was broken here. My cat knocked it to the ground. I searched for a long time before I found a store that repairs porcelain. I finally got it fixed today. I didn't know whether to laugh or cry. It's just a broken flower pot. If it's broken, it's broken. Is it really worth repairing? He held the flower pot in his hands and said seriously, it is. Julian and I gradually got to know each other better. As soon as he got off work, he would rush to my bookstore, volunteering to help me serve customers and clean up. Every time he entered the door, he would say, the great writer can focus on creating with peace of mind. Just leave the store to me. I was surprised when I learned that his job was a firefighter. Since I was saved that time, my wish has been to become a firefighter when I grew up. I'm very lucky to have achieved my wish. He was very proud when talking about his job. That tone was similar to my father's back then. Congratulations. I was genuinely happy for him. After we got to know each other better, Julian carefully asked me why I had returned to my hometown. He scratched his head. Actually, I saw you before and knew that you were married. I went to college in Jing City. After graduating, I went back once to attend a classmate's wedding. I happened to meet you in the mall. I didn't know what you looked like. It was just when we passed by each other that I heard the person next to you call you Sophia. This name was deeply ingrained in my heart. I suddenly turned my head and saw you. I wasn't sure at that time. Later, I secretly inquired and found out that you were the daughter of my savior. At that time, you were about to get married. Your wedding was very grand. I sneaked in and watched. You smiled very sweetly. Sophia, what happened? Why did you come back and settle down alone? Julian's voice was very gentle, as if he was afraid of hurting me, and the concern on his face was sincere. It's okay if you don't want to talk about it. I'm divorced, I said calmly. To be exact, we broke up. Because although I had a child with him, we didn't get a marriage certificate. Over the years, I had gotten used to digesting my emotions alone and burying all my thoughts in my heart. I thought I had lost the ability to share. But when facing someone who truly cared about me, I found that my desire to share was unexpectedly strong. I told him all my experiences over the years at a leisurely pace. As I spoke, my tone was calm, and I could even laugh at myself. But Julian listened with tears in his eyes. I looked at him somewhat amusingly. Why are you crying? They actually had the heart to hurt you like this. As he said this, another tear rolled down his face. Sophia, you've suffered a lot. From his eyes, I read a long-lost emotion. The kind of emotion that had once appeared in the eyes of my parents, as well as my grandparents. Heartache. He felt sorry for me. After all these years, I once again felt the feeling of being cared about and pitied. My heart suddenly warmed up. Some feelings among adults are tacit. I began to quietly accept Julian's care and attention. Because I found that it was very comfortable to be with him, and I had no discomfort or resistance at all. He observed and guessed my habits and hobbies from the little details, and he knew me better than I knew myself. Once, we went to the night market to eat barbecue. Since I didn't touch the squid skewers, he knew that I didn't like squid. Later, when we ate out, he never ordered any dishes related to squid again. When he ordered milk tea for me, I once said that I wanted 30 sugar, and he remembered it. Later, every time he bought milk tea for me, it was always 30 sugar. He seemed rough on the surface, but in fact, he was very delicate inside. Just like a cup of warm water, it soaked in quietly, making you feel comfortable everywhere. Over time, you would develop a dependence on it. One evening, it was the time when Julian got off work, but he didn't come to the bookstore as usual. More than an hour later, he still didn't show up, and I started to get anxious. I couldn't care less about being reserved and quickly called him, but no one answered. I started to panic. I searched the local timely news and learned that there was a fire in a factory in the western suburbs. I immediately took a taxi and rushed there. When I arrived, the fire had already been put out. Looking at the firefighters who had just come out of the factory, I scanned around but didn't see Julian's figure. My heart started to beat wildly out of control, and my hands began to tremble. The image of my father's back when he left 17 years ago flashed in my mind. I shook my head and murmured, Nunda Heights impossible. Suddenly, a familiar figure appeared in front of me. Sophia, why are you here? At that moment, all my emotions welled up. I cried and threw myself into his arms. You scared me to death. Julian, I thought something had happened to you, woo woo woo. Be good. Stop crying. I'm fine, aren't I? As he spoke, he gently patted my back to comfort me. When I calmed down, he held my cheeks and looked straight into my eyes. Just now, can I understand your reaction as you caring about me a lot? I didn't want to hesitate anymore and nodded without hesitation. Yes, I care about you, very much. I'll be worried and let my imagination run wild when I can't see you, Sophia. Let's be together. His eyes were shining brightly, with stars twinkling in them. Okay. After experiencing the ups and downs of emotions just now, I thought that there was nothing more important than cherishing the present moment. I didn't want to think too much anymore. I just wanted to follow my heart and be unrestrained and happy for once. 3 months after being with Julian, we got our marriage certificate. When we walked out of the Civil Affairs Bureau, Julian hugged me tightly. Sophia, don't be afraid. You have a home now. I'm your family and will never leave you. Tears streamed down from the corners of my eyes. It turned out that he had always understood me. He knew my inner uneasiness, my longing for a home and the missing piece in my heart. When we got home, Julian started cooking. He served up steak and red wine. Is this so grand? I raised my eyebrows. Are you kidding? It's a big day for getting the marriage certificate. Of course, we have to celebrate it properly. He sat down opposite me. My parents are still on a trip and haven't come back yet. But I called and told them about getting the certificate, and they were very happy too. They also said that when they come back, they'll start preparing for the wedding and will definitely not let you be wronged. 2 years ago, I saved some money myself. With the support from my parents, I bought a small house as our future marital home. It's the one you visited before. The house isn't big, but the good thing is that it was paid in full, so we don't have to worry about the mortgage. I'm going to start the renovation this month. If you have any opinions or like a certain style, you can tell me. I smiled. Let's eat first. We can talk about other things later. No way. He was serious. From today on, we're husband and wife. I have to tell you all about myself clearly. Now there's only one last thing left. He took out a card from his pocket and handed it to me. This is my salary card. I quickly shook my head. No, no. If you give it to me, what will you do when you need money in the future? You can give me pocket money. I like being taken care of by you. He insisted on stuffing the salary card into my hand. While we were pushing it back and forth, the doorbell rang. I immediately got up and ran to open the door. Looking at the father and son standing outside the door, I was stunned. Mom, Lucas hugged my leg and looked up at me. I stroked his head. Why are you here? Henry didn't answer my question and walked straight into the house. When he saw Julian sitting in the dining room, his face darkened as he looked at me. Who is he? Before I could answer, he glanced around and then continued on his own. After leaving me, you're living in such a small house and wronging yourself? I looked around. I was puzzled. This house was quite nice, wasn't it? It couldn't be compared with Henry's huge villa of hundreds of square meters, but it was also spacious, bright, warm, and comfortable. This place is nice. It's better than Henry's house. I told the truth. Don't be stubborn. Henry's smile was filled with disdain. When you were with me, you were served by servants every day. You didn't have to do anything, and everything you ate and used was of the finest quality. How could you possibly adapt to such a rough life? I understand that you were angry when I embarrassed you for another woman last time. I won't hold it against you for that matter either. I've already sent Isabella away and came to pick you up in person. You'd better not play hard to get any more. This is your last chance. I know you've always wanted to get the marriage certificate. In the future, you... No need. I interrupted him directly, not wanting to see his superior look anymore. I won't go back with you. This is my home. Also, I'm already married. Please don't bother me anymore in the future. Henry lost his calm demeanor. He suddenly looked at me, his pupils shaking violently. What did you say? Julian stepped forward, took my hand, and looked composed. Sir, today is a joyous day for me and Sophia. I'll overlook your nonsense. Please leave our house immediately. A trace of confusion flashed in Henry's eyes. What joyous day. We got our marriage certificate today. We are a legal couple. So Henry, you should leave. I will never go back to Jing City again. It took Henry a long while to speak. This joke isn't funny at all. I'm not joking with you, Henry. I'm married. Lucas suddenly rushed over, hugged my leg, and his eyes were filled with tears. Mom, don't you want me anymore? I squatted down and tried to speak gently. Lucas, although Mom won't be by your side anymore, I will always love you. If you miss Mom, you can have a video call with me. When you have a vacation in the future, you can also come and play with Mom. Although Lucas has never been close to me and used to say hurtful things to me. But I've never blamed him. He's just a 3-year-old child. What does he know? He's been separated from me since he was a child and we only met once a week. There was no time to cultivate our relationship. It's perfectly normal that he's not close to me. Maybe, the bond between us mother and son is shallow. Lucas looked at me and nodded as if he half understood. The day before the wedding, Henry came again. He stood at the door of the bookstore with a solemn face. I want to have a talk with you. Julian, who was sitting beside me, stood up. You to talk? I'll go out for a stroll. Seeing Julian go out, Henry turned to look at me. I admit that you won. Divorce him and we'll get the marriage certificate immediately. What nonsense are you talking about? You married another man out of spite, didn't you just force me to yield? Aren't you being too narcissistic? Henry chuckled. Otherwise, where does this man you found compare to me? Sophia, you love me. I can read it from your eyes. I looked at the man in front of me who seemed so certain for a long time, and then suddenly laughed. So, he always knew that I loved him. But because he was forced to get married, he couldn't swallow his pride and tortured me mentally to find balance. Then look into my eyes now. Can you still read the love for you? The person in front of me was stunned. Henry, I admit that I used to love you. But later I found out that you're not worthy of love. I stayed in the Henry family because of Lucas. Otherwise, I would have left long ago. Something seemed to break in his eyes, and there was obvious pain. It's impossible. You want to take revenge on me, right? I admit that I really hurt you in the past few years. I apologize to you. As long as you're willing to come back, I will make up for it. I didn't have no feelings for you at all in these past few years. I laughed out loud. Henry, you're such a coward. Is it really that hard to admit that you like me? Is it so hard for you to say that you like someone like me? Since you look down on me, why do you still wrong yourself and stay with me? That's not what I mean. His tone was a bit anxious. Of course, even if you admit that you like me, I won't go with you. Because the person I love now isn't you. He suddenly looked up, his eyes red. How could you possibly like him? I don't believe it. Yes, as you said, he really can't compare to you in many aspects. But he's gentle, kind, patient, and understands me. He has many advantages. Most importantly, as a partner, I'm the only one in his eyes. Henry fell into silence again. Just when I thought he was going to leave, he suddenly spoke, his voice hoarse. What if I can change? I can also do it. I'll only have eyes for you and never look at another woman again. I shook my head firmly. My feelings for you have been completely worn out in these past few years. Sophia, think about Lucas. He's our child. Don't you want him to have a complete family? I'll bring Lucas over as soon as I get back. We can live together as a family of 3, okay? Towards the end, his voice trembled slightly. But I just laughed softly. So Lucas can be brought back. In the past few years, he clearly knew how much I missed Lucas. I begged him countless times to bring the child back, but he cruelly refused. Now he says that we can live together as a family of 3. How ridiculous. I raised my head and my gaze was firm. Since Lucas was born, you've used him to control me. In the future, he can no longer be a tool for you to threaten me. Because I've learned to love myself. From now on, I'll put myself first, and no one can hurt me anymore. Henry left in a disheveled state. Julian rushed in with hasty steps and hugged me nervously. I struggled. Your arm is hurting me. He loosened his arm but didn't let go of me. Sorry, Sophia. I'm just so scared. What are you afraid of? Afraid that you'll go with him, afraid that you'll leave me. I held his face and smiled softly. Silly, I'm your wife. How could I go with someone else? But you haven't told me that you love. Shh, I interrupted him. What's tomorrow? Our wedding. Don't you want to hear my confession at the wedding? He nodded vigorously. Right, he slapped his head. I still need to go back and go over the wedding process with the MC. Tomorrow is an important day for us. There can't be any mistakes. Oh no, I have a bad memory. What if I forget my lines when I'm nervous tomorrow? He suddenly became anxious and paced around the room a few times. I won't keep you company. I'll go back and prepare now. I can even stay up all night if necessary. He rushed outside in a hurry, then suddenly turned back. He waved at me with a bright smile. "Sophia, wait for me to marry you tomorrow." Extra chapter from Henry's perspective. I never thought that just because of a cup of coffee, Sophia left me and never came back. At first, I thought she was just throwing a tantrum. Sophia has always been well behaved in front of me. That day, she left the banquet directly, and I was also a bit angry. So, on Sunday, I took Lucas out to play. To punish her for not being obedient. But she didn't come home for a whole week. Another Sunday, even on the day when Lucas was supposed to come, she still refused to come back. I was really getting angry. In the past, every time we had a small conflict, she would always take the initiative to compromise. I just wanted to see how long she could hold out this time. That day, the phone rang, and I saw her name flashing. I almost answered it immediately. But I didn't want to seem so eager, so I picked up the phone at the last second of the ringtone. I really wanted to ask her where she had been recently and how she was doing. But when I opened my mouth I said, "Realized your mistake." I also said that as a punishment, she couldn't see Lucas for 3 months. I was just saying it. Because she had been away for too long, I didn't want her to get into the habit of running away from home. She had to pay a price so that she wouldn't dare to leave easily in the future. When I heard her say, "We didn't get a marriage certificate when we got married before," the corners of my mouth unconsciously turned up. So this was all about getting the marriage certificate. This was going to happen sooner or later. I deliberately didn't agree just to tease her. Maybe my temper has been spoiled by Sophia. I'm used to her giving in and used to being superior. I really wanted her to come back, but I stubbornly said that she should apologize to Isabella. When I heard her cold voice say, "We're breaking up," my head buzzed. I couldn't believe what I had heard. I always thought that Sophia's words about leaving were just out of anger. After all, Lucas was still here. How could she bear to leave? I could see how much she loved the child. I thought, well, she must be really angry this time. If she wants to go out and relax, let her. Once she hits a wall outside, she'll know how good the Henry family is. In the past few years, I had taken good care of her. She definitely couldn't get used to the rough life outside. But she was gone for months without any news. She didn't even call Lucas once. I started to panic. I asked someone to investigate her whereabouts. My assistant sent me her address, and I rushed there by plane with Lucas in a hurry. I didn't even bother to look at the other investigation information that my assistant sent along. The moment I knew she was married, it was like a blow to my head. I couldn't recover for a long time. I couldn't believe it. How could she marry someone else? Didn't she want me anymore? Didn't she want Lucas anymore? The day before her wedding, I went to see her. I wanted to make one last effort. But she said that she didn't love me anymore. I could tell from her eyes that she had truly let go of the past. I had lost her forever. On the day of the wedding, I watched from a distance. Holding the microphone, she confessed her love to the groom. "I love you." I felt deep jealousy. She had never told me that she loved me. At that moment, her smile was so bright, and her eyes were filled with happiness. But my heart ached. Her happiness wasn't given by me. Sometimes I wonder when I fell in love with Sophia. Perhaps, I fell in love with her the first time we met. We sat together and had a meal. Her smile was timid, and her eyes were as pure and innocent as a fawn's. She was so beautiful and lovely that it was hard not to like her and want to possess her. It was only later that I realized. In fact, marrying Sophia wasn't entirely out of coercion. With my personality, if I didn't want to, no one could force me. I agreed to get married because deep down, I had already accepted her. But I couldn't see it clearly at that time. I was angry that my marriage was being manipulated, and that I was being used as a tool to repay a favor. Sophia, a young girl who had never been in love before, was simple and easily deceived. After we got married, I deliberately treated her well, being considerate and taking care of her in every way. Sure enough, soon I saw admiration and infatuation for me in her eyes. When she became pregnant, I distanced myself from her step by step. This was my revenge. Since I was a child, no one had ever forced me to do anything. Her grandmother was the first. So I could only take my revenge on her. After the child was born, when she mentioned getting the marriage certificate again, I mocked her and her grandmother harshly. When my mother took Lucas away, I didn't object either. At that time, she really didn't have the energy to take care of a child. It wasn't long after her difficult labor, and then her grandmother passed away. She was like a thin piece of paper, extremely fragile. I wanted her to have a good rest and recover her health. But later, as I watched her become more and more indifferent to me, I started to panic. I couldn't stand that her eyes no longer looked at me with infatuation. I wanted to hold her face and force her to look at me. So, I did something stupid. I began to threaten her with Lucas. As long as she wasn't obedient, I wouldn't let her see Lucas. Sure enough, she became docile again. Even when I found a woman outside, she didn't say a word. But I still wasn't happy. She was like a doll, letting me manipulate her and unable to resist. But she had no expression on her face. I wanted her to show some emotion, even if it was anger. I started to do even more excessive things, trying to provoke her. Our marriage fell into such a vicious cycle. But I was powerless. Later, I finally understood. I was wrong from the very beginning. I regretted letting my mother take Lucas away. She met Lucas too rarely, so Lucas didn't have much affection for her. Because the child didn't miss her, she was able to leave so resolutely. If Lucas had been with her since he was born and they had a deep mother-son bond, she would never have been able to bear leaving the child behind. Even for the sake of the child, she wouldn't have left the Henry family. I also regretted asking her to make coffee for Isabella that day. Because of that angry remark of mine, she left me forever. She left so determinedly and never looked back. I often regret not seeing my own feelings clearly earlier. I regret not treating her better before. Why did I always make her admit her mistakes and bow her head? Why did I force her again and again? What stupid things have I done? I'm a man, but I didn't protect her well. I made her get hurt again and again until she was finally filled with despair. I think I will spend the rest of my life in regret. All kinds of regrets will overwhelm and consume me. They will make me unable to eat or sleep peacefully, and my heart will be broken. This is my retribution. One night, I had a dream. In the dream, Sophia and I were having a wedding. She was wearing a beautiful wedding dress and looking at me with a smile on her face. I took her hand and ran off the stage. "Where are we going?" "To get the marriage certificate," I said loudly. "This time, I will definitely hold you tightly and never let go."